Hi everyone. First and foremost, Happy New Year. Hope you all had a very nice festive period. Hopefully 2021 is a slightly better year than 2020 was. Great guest lined up for you today. This man, fantastic coach, great mentor, ex-Ireland national team coach, ex-South Africa assistant coach, and more recently Hampshire County coach as well. I'm joined by Adrian Birrell. How are you, sir?
Hello, Kazim. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. I wish I had your background. Unfortunately, I'm cooped up with the heating on.
Yeah, I know. We got the opposite. Yeah, we got quite a hot day. I don't know if you can see the clear sky, clear blue
I can
sky.
see the fact that you're sitting outside with a t-shirt on tells me everything I need to know. That you're in a nice climate. So no, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that. Just want to give a special mention first and foremost to the person that lined this. Put me in touch with Adrian. I've not spoken to you for many years. So Shane Berger kindly reached out to you and put us in touch. So thank you very much, Shane. Appreciate that. What I'm going to do with you today, then, Adrian, is I'm going to take you through a journey. I'm going to test your memory, and I'm going to start it all the way back. Born and bred 8th of December 1960 in Grahamstown, Cape Province, South Africa. Talk to me a little bit about what it was like, growing up there, your family background, a little bit about your childhood.
Well, I was very fortunate. I was born into a cricket family. A lot of my uncles played cricket, and my dad was a cricket coach at St Andrews College, Grahamstown. And I was basically brought up on the school playing field. And I was very fortunate because I used to go to the nets with my dad and listen to him coach. And he was a lifetime coach as well as a schoolmaster. But every afternoon he was coaching cricket. And I would have learned a lot from from that upbringing. And it was, I'd say, a very fortunate upbringing, and sort of laid the foundation for my career in cricket, really.
Well, the fact that you went on to be such a fantastic coach, I think what you've just mentioned there has probably got a lot to do with your father, because he was you had a direct link to a coach straight away from within the family. Must have been a huge influence, as you've said. So were you always a leg spinner?
Yeah, I was always a leg spinner and batter.
Okay.
But yeah, I was. I suppose I can't remember bowling anything else. Yeah, I was a leg spinner.
So I mean, it's a tough art to take up. Was there any influences in the fact that you decided to bowl leg spin?
No, I think probably my dad pushed me onto leg spin. He was an off spin bowler, and he played first class cricket as well as provincial rugby. He was one of those sort of dual sportsmen. But I don't really remember how it started, but I would think my dad would have pushed a ball into my hand and sort of forced me to bowl leg spin. I would think maybe it came out naturally. I don't know, but it was. I can't remember really doing anything else.
Okay. So when was it? As you started your journey, I think you went to St Andrews as well, didn't you, as a pupil?
Yeah.
So did they have quite a successful cricket setup?
Yeah, very successful. It's a good cricketing school. Lots of fields, lots of practice facilities, lots of coaches. We had English coaches come over and coach us in the off season. I mean, in the cricket season, their off season. And yeah, I think it was a good setup and quite professional for a schoolboy setup. And then in the holidays, I had access to all those facilities. And it wasn't many days where my dad didn't throw balls at me and coach me. And so a lot of my coaching stems from just being around my father and listening to to what how he would teach cricket, and I've used a lot of that in my coaching life.
That's wonderful. It's great to hear of your father's influence. When did you start realizing you were quite good?
At about, I don't know if I was really good, Chasm. I suppose I was very average, being a late developer and being quite sort of tall and not very strong. I remember hitting my first six when I was about 16, and yeah, I sort of was a late developer at school and only really became a decent schoolboy cricketer in my last year at school. I would always be a very average schoolboy, A team and first team cricketer for my school. But I wasn't outstanding, and it was probably in my last year that I had a good year for the first time.
So when did things really give you? I mean, at that point, did you think you would go on to play professional cricket then, or was that not really in the plans?
I think at that stage I was a bit of a cricket badger, as you call it there. I love cricket and I practiced so hard and had these dreams of playing professional cricket. I did a teaching degree at university. I went to the army. We had to go to the army here for 2 years, and then I went to university in Port Elizabeth, which at the time was a very good cricketing university, and made my way, sort of training to be a teacher, but also it was almost like a professional setup because we had a coach called David Trist, who ended up being the New Zealand coach. He was a New Zealander.
Wow.
And he was an excellent coach, and he sort of mentored us and coached us as a group of young players who a lot of us went on to play for Eastern Province from that university setup. So I'd say it would almost be like a sort of a county academy kind of thing that was set up at the university. And very, between lectures you'd go and have nets, and there'd be a program that you could go and get this very good coach having a look at you and throwing balls at you, and you'd be in a small little group. And I think that was, that sort of accelerated a lot of us, and eventually, a lot of that team would have played, provincial cricket for Eastern Province at the time.
So when do you get the call up? When do you get the nod to say that, did you play some B stuff to start with? When was contracts and things come into play? How did it go back then?
Well, at that time, you couldn't really live off a cricket contract. You had to have other, other income. So a lot of the players had other jobs. There were lawyers, and there were teachers, and there were, people that had other professions that would play cricket and get paid for cricket, but not very much. And sort of Dave Richardson, the ICC CEO recently, he was the forerunner of professional cricket in South Africa, and he made things happen on a professional level, and slowly it became professional. Kazim, I wasn't a great cricket player, and from a very young age, I was thrust into coaching because I can speak Xhosa, the Nelson Mandela's language.
Yeah.
And so a very forward-thinking politician, a guy called Flip Potgieter, employed me, and he was on the Eastern Province board, and he employed me to coach in the townships as when I was still a student, and I would get this second income, sort of coaching cricket. So I started coaching cricket in January 1986, full time. And even before that, I was coaching at schools through this, through this guy Flip Potgieter, and that sort of paved my way. And then when I became a teacher, I taught one term at Grey High School in Port Elizabeth, and at the same time I was coaching, and sort of I just I don't know, it wasn't really a decision. I just ended up carrying on coaching and left the teaching profession, and that was sort of my transition into coaching. But at the same time, I was trying to play professional cricket, and I was playing the odd game for Eastern Province, and I would be at a couple of seasons captain of the B side, playing, the second team and captaining that, but also coaching all along. And so, you had to earn this second income, and fortunately, my second income was coaching cricket.
That's great. I mean, I never knew the way it all started out for you. I mean, you're modest. You did take 75 first-class wickets, which is, listen, no mean feat. That's a good effort. I've faced you in a few net sessions, and you're a handy, even in recent times, you're a very handy leg spinner. But it's safe to say you were made for coaching. I mean, the fact that you've got a teaching profession as well, your people skills, speaking and communicating with people comes naturally to you. Your father kind of paved the way. So, it makes sense that you transitioned to that. And I'm glad to hear you got those opportunities to coach. But it sounds like you tried a bit of everything. You would coach anywhere and everywhere. I can imagine you going into a park and seeing a couple of people playing some cricket, and you would join in and coach them.
Yeah, well, I coached 9 years in the townships, and that sort of paved my way for the coaching thereafter, because nothing thereafter has been as difficult as those 9 years. I was also the groundsman at St. George, at St. George's for a couple of years as well. So I suppose I've had good foundations in cricket, and even that has enabled me to read pitches and know a little bit more than just a coach would about what we play on, and the preparation of wickets and how they play, and how the pitch evolves through a 4-day game, and that that's also helped me a lot. But I think I've had a good cricket education all around. I've been very fortunate, Kazim. Yeah.
Sounds like it. From a grassroots to a professional standpoint, nothing. School cricket, a bit. You've literally coached a little bit of everything. But did you ever foresee that this would take you on a path that would find you over in Ireland as a cricket coach? How did the role come around, and tell me a bit about that? That was, I think back in 2005, around that kind of time, that you moved into that role. Please tell me a bit about it.
It was actually 2002. I was in the third year of being the head coach of Eastern Province, and the Ireland job came up, and I don't know. I was sort of like it was a bit of a late thought to apply. I think I only beat the application closing date by about a day, and then got an interview, and I mean, I had a very good job at the time, and I hadn't given it a lot of thought at all. But I don't know. The Eastern Province job at the time wasn't very easy, and you always think that there's greener pastures. So Ireland is certainly a greener place than Eastern Province, and I don't know. I don't really know why I applied or what, and I certainly didn't know a lot about Irish cricket. Anyway, I got the job, and before I could blink, I was on a plane going to Ireland, and that was in 2002, and I was the coach of Ireland from 2002 to 2007.
So you arrive in Ireland. Did you know much at all? I mean, I'm assuming you started doing a bit of research when you started giving it a little bit of late thought, but what did you know about Irish cricket?
I knew nothing. Seriously, nothing. I knew two players, Andrew White and Niall O'Brien. They were at an academy at Eastern Province, and so there was a game that Eastern Province played, a warm-up game against the academy at the university, the same university that I was at, and they were there, and then I sort of was picking their brains because I couldn't tell them that I'd applied for the job, and no one knew, and I kept asking them about Irish cricket. They must have thought I was some crazy guy that had some love affair with Irish cricket, but I kept asking them all about Irish cricket, and then got the job, and then invited them for a braai at my house, and those are the first two Irishmen that I met, and that was the first sort of a bit of knowledge that I got was from those two players, and but my dad sort of asked me, do I know anything about Ireland? I said, sure, no, I think it's just on the left-hand side of England. And he said, "Now I'll tell you a story about Ireland." He said, "This Irishman was in a conversation with God, and he said, 'Can I ask you a few questions?' And God said, 'No, not really. It's not really the done thing. But because you're Irish, I'll allow you to ask me 3 questions.' So this Irishman said, 'Well, first question: will there be peace in Afghanistan?' And God said, 'No, not in your lifetime.' And question number 2, he said, 'Will there be peace in Palestine?' And God said, 'No, not in your lifetime.' This Irishman had one more question, and he said, 'Will there be peace in Northern Ireland?' And God said, 'No, not in my lifetime.' And my dad said, 'You're taking on something that's quite big there. There's lots of
Yeah.
trouble. There's a struggle.'
Yeah.
And anyway, I went off to Ireland, and I really knew nothing. And just through talking to people, and getting to know the players and the administrators, you slowly get to learn the business. And once I learned the business, I was able to influence it in a positive way, I think. And yeah, you just in any job, I think you just got to understand the business first. And I think I didn't do a lot of things well, but I think I did that quite well, where I just got to learn what the strengths and weaknesses were, and the history, and try to get as much knowledge as possible about Irish cricket at the time.
So where were you staying when you first arrived over? Were you in Northern Ireland, or were you over in Dublin? Whereabouts were you?
I had a choice of staying in Dublin or Belfast, and my wife is a chartered accountant with Deloitte, and got a sort of a job with Deloitte in Dublin. So I stayed on the north side in a place called Malahide.
Yep.
And I stayed there for 10 years, really.
So how did it work with the training and stuff like that? I'm assuming you had to do quite a bit of traveling.
Yeah, I would have gone to Belfast quite often, and also to the northwest, to a place called Eglinton, and that sort of was the hub of the northwest, and we coached there, and also in Belfast at Queen's University in the winter, and then at various clubs, and then also at North County, which is just on the north side. Actually, by some fluke, I lived quite close, and so it was quite. I was on the north side of Dublin, so it was easy to commute northwards, and the indoor centre at North County was quite close to where I lived.
So expectation-wise, Eddie, you go over to Ireland. I'm assuming, obviously, you're first and foremost, you want to improve the side. You want to better them. What was the kind of expectations put in place by Irish cricket and yourself, that you were kind of mutually agreed of what you were expecting out of this role and what they were expecting from you?
Well, in 2005, there was a tournament to qualify for the 2007 World Cup, and there were, I think, there were 4 places up for grabs, and it was about qualifying for that. Ireland needed to qualify for that for me to continue as head coach. So I had a 3-year contract, and if Ireland could qualify, then I would have had my contract would continue to the World Cup, which it did. So there was a tournament which fortunately was in Dublin, and it was a build up to that was quite important to outpace the opposition. Obviously, one of them Scotland, and Scotland won that tournament. But it was, at the time when I got there, Ireland was behind Scotland and Holland and a number of other associates, and it was a matter of firstly trying to compete, and then trying to outcompete your opposition and trying to outthink them and qualify. And so fortunately we qualified as second place, and got our traveling ticket to the World Cup in 2007.
Yeah, no, look, from when you took over the role, and to where Irish cricket has come, I really believe you were the start of all the good things that were to come. You must have been pleasantly surprised when you arrived to see the core of talent that you had. I mean, to go through, I mean, a lot of these guys have played against the youth to start with, the O'Brien brothers, Porterfield, John Mooney, and then you had your senior guard, the likes of Bray, Trent Johnston, Kyle McCallan, a real good blend of players there. Did they over exceed in talent? Oh, sorry, a young Owen Morgan as well, who you had the pleasure of working with. So when you got there, did you arrive at net practice and a couple of times and think, bloody hell, these guys are better than what I thought they were going to be?
Absolutely. The captain was a guy called Jason Mullins, and I lent very heavily on him at the start, to get to, because he was a really good captain, and at the time he was in charge and was running I think a good ship, and I lent on him a lot, and in that first few years to the qualification of the World Cup, to that tournament, it was very important that those senior players led the way, and they did. And I was very surprised at the talent that existed in Ireland, and also the history. I didn't know much about Irish cricket, and I met up with quite a few ex-players and got to learn about the history. And there was a lot more to Irish cricket than I ever dreamt there was. And so it was a pleasant surprise with being confronted with this talented squad. And you said it was me that changed Irish cricket. It wasn't at all. It was a golden era of players where you've mentioned all those names, but it was firstly, we must never forget Ed Joyce as well, who had a great influence.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many names.
Yeah, but he helped us qualify. He played in that tournament, and at the time was playing for Middlesex, and he gave up his quite a few matches for Middlesex to help Ireland qualify. So there were little things that happened, and ironically, we then faced him in the World Cup. He played for England against us, but there was a really good nucleus of players, and I think what we did quite well is we blended. We're quite fortunate that we had quite a few overseas players that became eligible to play for Ireland at that World Cup or at the qualifying, and there were 4 good players that gelled well with the 7 Irish players, if that actually strengthened the team. That they didn't have that, they didn't have that quality of players before that, and I think that made a big difference. So yes, you mentioned Jeremy Bray, Andre Buerta, David Langford-Smith, and Trent Johnson were the mainstays of that World Cup 2007 team. They're all foreigners to Ireland, but played as Irishmen, and I think they had a big influence. And obviously the other players of that were Irish born and bred, McCallans and the Owen Morgans, and and the Mooney brothers, Gillespie, and all those players, I think blended very well, and of course O'Brien. So I think it was a good blend, and it came at the right time to sort of catapult Ireland through the associate ranks into and probably change the landscape for Ireland cricket forever.
Absolutely, great to listen to you talking about the squad and how you evolved through the couple of years leading into it, and then you go to the World Cup in the Caribbean. You must be on cloud 9 as a coach. You've gone from coaching in South Africa to not knowing what to expect in Ireland, and here you are at a World Cup. What were the general feelings going into the World Cup? Did you truly believe that you could achieve anywhere near what you ended up achieving, or what were you saying as coach? I want to try to win games, or were you saying I want to win games?
We wanted to win the World Cup.
I like the attitude. I like that.
No, I mean, it was sort of tongue in cheek, but I mean, there was even a song that we sang on the bus. It's going to bring the World Cup home. But obviously, that was way too far for us. But I think we all it was so new and almost like a fairy tale that it was a success just to get there, and then almost like a joy every match that you played, because you were so starved of that sort of occasion and opportunity, that it was just tremendous for Irish cricket and the followers, and and it was fantastic to just be on that world stage, albeit you go there as a minnow, and at the time you could probably bank on playing 3 matches because there was only a pool of 4.
Yeah.
And fortunately it went our way, and we played in the Super 8, so we played a lot more than 4 matches, but it was it 3 matches? Yeah, 3.
Yes.
And then you
To start on that, I think you faced Zimbabwe in the first game.
Yeah.
And that was a famous draw, which straight away kind of got the eyes on Irish cricket, because it was like, these boys are here to compete.
Yeah, well, Jeremy Bray got 118 or 115 or something, got us to a decent total, and then we were losing it fast, and then Kyle was bowling, and the ball was hit back, and Taylor was their number 1 batter, and he was at the bowler's end, and there was a flick onto the stumps of Kyle's finger, and from a position where we couldn't win, suddenly we manufactured a win from nowhere, and then Trent put on Andrew White to bowl the last over. I thought he's crazy. Could have bowled anyone else. We bowled Andrew White, and we sort of got a tie from nowhere. It was like incredible.
You always say it, the luck of the Irish. You do. The Irish do make their own. They make their own luck, and you continue to do it on the big stage. Now you go into the next game, which I believe is against Pakistan.
Yeah.
Very famous day for Irish cricket. It's a very famous day for some great reasons, and also for some sad reasons as well. I'll start first by saying, you go into that game against a very box office Pakistan team. What were you discussing in the changing room? What were the tactics?
Well, the pitch took us by surprise. It was green. And I mean, you play on green wickets in Ireland. You don't play on green wickets in Pakistan. So that was already in our favor. So it was a green sort of nibbly pitch. And we had trained for about a year to face Shoaib Akhtar. And then he didn't play. And I think they made 1 or 2 selection errors maybe that went in our favor. And we started bowling, and it went quite well, and then it went even better, and then it went fantastically. And they all bowled well, but Andre Buerta bowled 8 overs, 2 for 5.
Wow.
I don't know why Trent didn't finish his 10 overs, but things went well, and I think I got 137, and then we started batting, and Niall O'Brien couldn't buy a run for the lead up. There was a tournament in Nairobi, and couldn't get a run, and he was batting at 4, and he got 72. It was a fantastic innings, held it together, and then his brother came in at the end and played an innings that is not Kevin O'Brien, who he blocked and got us over the line, because he was our last batter. And it's part of our tactics to have a batter in at the end, and he was the last batter. And we also batted deep. Trent Johnson was batting at about 7, and Kyle McCallan, who batted at 3 for Ireland, batted at 9. So we batted all the way down. And then I think it was only Boyd and Dave Langford-Smith that were batting at 10 and 11. But everyone could bat, and so we sort of got to a situation where it was on the line, and Trent, we needed, I don't know, 4, 6 to win, 5 to win, I think, and he hit a 6, and it was mayhem. We'd beaten Pakistan in the World Cup. I mean, how ridiculous is that?
I remember it so well. I mean, the celebrations in the crowd, the Irish were there in numbers. It sent waves through the cricketing world. I mean, you must have been just on cloud nine as coach, so proud of what you'd
Yeah.
achieved. But now you're in a situation where you've actually qualified. You've qualified as well. So you've not even
Yeah,
got.
well, I think you mentioned a very sad day as well, because Bob
Yeah,
Woolmer died that night.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it was almost like, that your greatest achievement has now been hampered by this, this terrible, this horrific death, and then it was a murder investigation, and it was, it was very trying. You just won your greatest game, and then that's tempered by this terrible death. And obviously,
I actually seen a great picture today. I was just scrolling, looking for some images of you, which there's plenty, but there was one great picture of yourself, the late Bob Wilmer, and Inzamam Hack. You must have been standing on the edge of the ground or somewhere. Were you quite? I mean, you're obviously from South African descent. Did you have quite much to do with Bob Wilmer coming through as a coach?
yeah, we knew each other, and we chatted, and obviously after the game, I was like almost embarrassed because we'd beaten Pakistan, and I sort of said, "Sure, I think the toss had a lot to do with it," and he said, "No, you guys outplayed us," and he was very gracious in defeat, and very humble, and didn't look for excuses. He was tremendous, and I mean, just a few hours later, he was dead. It was tremendously difficult to take, that he was there and he didn't look ill and didn't look in trouble, and who knows, there was an open verdict, and I don't know. I really don't know what happened.
Yeah, no, it was wasn't a good situation. It didn't sound particularly great from what was found and everything. And the late Bob Wilmer, what a coach. I think after when he passed away, the whole world and the influence that he had on cricket in general was just incredible. We were, even when I've been over to Pakistan, he's loved in Pakistan. He's so appreciated. But yeah, no, it would have been a strange day for you to look back on, because you're on a cloud. You've got this amazing feeling, and then to lose somebody like Bob as a South African as well must have been a very difficult. How do you get your head in the right place? You then go into a game against the West Indies, which I'm pretty sure you lost. You lost that game against the West Indies. Was there anything in particular? Did the team? Do you think the team were still just recovering from the Pakistani victory and maybe not focused on that game?
There was a party, but no, we were focused on every game. But you're playing against these test countries, or these top countries at the time. They had a number of good players, and we outplayed. Always, and then we got into Super 8s, and always I sort of had this recurring nightmare that we were going to get bowled out for 24. And it would have been sort of headlines in all the papers that minnows are disgraced, Ireland bowled out for 24. And so, as a coach going into those matches, it's quite daunting, because they're all very good sides, and you there as a minnow trying to compete. And, fortunately, we didn't get bowled out for 24, but it's difficult times. But he had a fantastic game against Bangladesh to win by about 80 runs.
74 run victory. Very decisive victory.
Yeah.
I guess that showed that this wasn't a fluke. When you drew with Zimbabwe, you managed to beat Pakistan. Some people, if you just got lost every single game in the Super 8s, would have said, "Lucky Irish, they got lucky in a couple of games." But the fact that you beat Bangladesh kind of reminded everybody that you really can compete at this level.
Well, Kazim, the build-up to the World Cup was very important, because we did achieve some very good wins against very good opposition, and that sort of gave the belief that team could, on their day, they could beat almost anyone. You're obviously going to lose most of your matches against those big sides, but in the back of our minds was, if things go our way, we've done it before. We'd beaten the West Indies in Ireland. We'd beaten a good Zimbabwe side in Ireland. We'd beaten Surrey, and there were a number of wins that were very important to the belief of that team, that on their day, they weren't scared to come out and win because you've done it before. It's always very difficult to do something for the first time. But, building that belief was very important that, that we've done some remarkable stuff before. It can happen again. And so, when things went our way, you were able to get over the line, and that continued. I think after that World Cup, in the next World Cup, they beat England.
Yeah.
And so, that belief continued.
When I said that you were the kind of the person that started it all, I was not certainly disgracing everything that had come from before in Irish cricket, but it's pretty obvious that from the 2007 World Cup, where Irish cricket was prior to that, and where it is in 2020 now with them, they've got test status, and they've won numerous games since then at further World Cups, was a sign that the 2007 World Cup really launched them into international cricket. Some outstanding players were made from that World Cup. One name in particular just won the World Cup with England, was a young Owen Morgan. Did you see that kind of future for him?
Well, he's the youngest player to play for Ireland. I don't know if since then if anyone
has broken that record.
I don't think so, but at the time he was the youngest.
Yep.
So he was a child prodigy, really, and I think he just to speak a little bit about Owen, he was from Dublin, and he would go over and play for Middlesex, and in his school holidays, and get on a plane and go over. And so he was very independent and had a lot of experience as a young guy, because he went to 3 under-19 World Cups. And, no one from England, South Africa, or anywhere would go to 3 under-19 World Cups. And he did sort of bat at 3, and got, for a young player, would have had more experience than any other player anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And to play for Ireland at 16, and I don't care what anyone says. I say this a lot. When you play for an associate, there's always pressure, because there's always a qualification that you've got to play for. And so those matches are, it teaches you to deal with pressure. And I think that maybe have had a little bit to do with the success he's had with England, that he's always played under pressure. He's been independent from a young player, and he's had more experience as a youngster than anyone in the world. And so, he might be Irish, but, don't discount someone playing above their age group in men's cricket from a very young age. He would have been sworn at. They're very competitive in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have, paved his way to be a very tough cricketer. And I think that had quite a lot to do with himself becoming an exceptional cricketer. Same as Ed Joyce. He had a similar upbringing in Ireland, where it might be associate cricket, but it's actually tough cricket.
Mm-hmm.
It's played on sometimes poor wickets, but there's always pressure to play. You've got to qualify. You've got to beat Scotland and Holland and all the other associates in order to get into the next event. And there's no guarantees going forward. So I think it develops quite a tough cricketer, does the associate system.
Well, the Irish in particular, from having experience playing against the Irish, always tough, very, very, very tough made. What you see is what you get, and they come hard at you on the pitch all the time. Yeah. And that's the love of playing against Ireland as well. Would you think that's why a lot of them went on to then get county careers from the 2007 World Cup? A fair few guys went into the county system. Niall O'Brien has done very well for himself in county cricket. Potterfield has done well for himself. More recently, Paul Stirling has gone into the setup. Obviously Morgan went from strength to strength. Ed Joyce went from strength to strength. Both played for England as well. Boyd Rankin. So many guys that maybe when you first arrived, they didn't have so many players in the professional setup. Do you think, again, that 2007 World Cup got people noticing that, hang on a second, these guys can play a bit?
I think it was a bit before that, because there was definitely a push from Ireland's side to get these guys playing county cricket, mm-hmm. Because the domestic system, with all due respect, isn't as strong as a county system. And so we needed those players to become, play county cricket in order for them to get the experience to play international cricket, which is where, what the goal was. So even before 2007, I think there was quite a push to get as many players playing county cricket as possible and become professionals. Obviously since then and more recently, Ireland is now fully professional, and the Sterlings have come back, and Boyd Rankin's come back, and they've got a professional system in place now where I'm delighted that it's there. But at the time it wasn't there, and so we were trying to piggyback on the English system in order to get players to get good quality opposition and good experience.
Well, you mentioned earlier on, you were saying about when you were growing up and when you were coming through your first class cricket setup, you had to have another job. Now, Scotland and Ireland, growing up, coming through the system, I would be playing with guys that were a chartered accountant by day and, cricketer for a couple of weeks in the sun and then back to their day. Ireland would have been very much the same. To be able to compete at international level, the bar needs to raise and more guys need to be playing professional cricket, and that certainly benefited the likes of Ireland and Scotland having more players in the county setup. And you must be really proud to see that from where your time has come, that now guys in Ireland are getting professional contracts. I think similar in Scotland. It's exciting times. I just feel the World Cup itself, the 50 over World Cup, it's more difficult now for these countries to get into it. And it's sad because if you look back at some of the memorable victories over the last 2 or 3 World Cups, they've been by associate countries.
Absolutely. Some of the best games in history have been associate countries involved. And it is very difficult to get in now, limited space. And so, associate cricket is where you think cricket should be grown around the world. It's struggling. And, I think the ICC need to try and, again, look at associate cricket to build another tier maybe, and get opportunities to play against the top countries. But, the Future Tours program is congested, and now with COVID, you just don't know, what the future is going forward for the associates.
You come to the end of the tournament, you come back to a hero's welcome in Dublin, I believe. Do you have much memory of that?
Yeah. It was a great welcome back. And I think, there were a lot of functions that we were invited to, and it was great. But I'd opted out of continuing with Irish cricket, and Phil Simmons then took over from me at the end of that tournament. So, it was, quite a quick transition from myself to him straight off the tournament.
Can I ask why? What were your reasons behind that?
Well, my wife was she became a partner with Deloitte in Dublin, and we had 2 young kids, and it was difficult to bring up, having two sort of career people. And so I became a house husband for 3 weeks, and then put in my resignation and went off to England to coach the England under-19s. So, that was a new, I started coaching in England after that.
Do you think it was also just maybe a good time for a change? Do you think you were ready for both you and Ireland? Maybe were ready to, you achieved great heights and you were ready for different paths.
Yeah, I still think 5 years is a good stint for a coach, and then maybe a different voice. It's difficult to continue forever as a coach. There's only there's only 1 or 2 coaches that have gone on for a long period of time in cricket. So I think 5 years is about right, and that was 5 years with Irish cricket, and then I moved on to the next sort of challenge.
You mentioned England under-19s there. I'm going to probably fast forward a little bit, because you landed what I'd assume would be quite a dream job for you a few years down the line in 2013 when you were appointed to become the South African assistant coach.
Yeah, it came out the blue. I was working for the Warriors, and Russell Domingo was the assistant coach to Gary Kirsten with the Proteas,
Mhm.
and we were playing golf, and we were not in the same four ball. And afterwards, I was getting a coffee, and he came up to me and he said, "This was a Wednesday evening," and he said, "If I become Proteas coach, would you be my assistant?" And I goes, "Wow, Russ, thank you. I would love to do that." Thinking it might be 3 years down the line because Gary Kirsten was entrenched as coach.
Yep.
And then the next day you get a sort of internal email saying Gary Kirsten resigns as Proteas coach. And then I went to my boss, Dave Emsley, the CEO of the Warriors and EP Cricket, and said, have you heard something about Kirsten? He said, "Yeah, Gary Kirsten's resigned and Russell's on a plane to go and accept the job." And I said to him, "Jeepers, yesterday Russell asked me to be the assistant." He said, "Yes, he did. I know about that." And that was a Thursday. And then I got a call from Doc Musaji on the Friday. And then on Monday, I had a new job as the assistant coach of the Proteas. So from the Wednesday to the Monday, my sort of life was turned upside down.
Amazing.
Yes, it was a dream job.
And you had no clue or anything within that week. It all happened, just in a conversation off the golf course. So before you know it, you're at joining a new coach as well, who you said was the assistant coach to Gary Kirsten. So he was already knew of the squad reasonably well. So what was it like turning up for your new role? How many of these guys did you know? Did you know them quite well?
Well, firstly, I knew Russell Domingo very well. I'd employed him as a coach years before. And I coached him. He was in one of my teams. He thought he was very good, but he was actually just average. Anyway, Russell Domingo became coach, and so I knew him very well. And just our first, I didn't know how things happened or how things went. I thought maybe you'd go away and have a camp before you went on tour. Next thing I knew, that we all had to congregate in the business lounge at Emirates to fly to Sri Lanka for our first tour.
Wow.
And got on the plane. I knew all the players, having been involved in cricket. I knew most of them, or I'd shaken hands with them, or not coached a lot of them, but there was no one really I didn't know. But I sat next to AB de Villiers on the plane on the way to Sri Lanka, and it was sort of it was brilliant. I mean, he was so welcoming, and then you meet Ash, and he's welcoming, and Faf du Plessis, and he's welcoming, and it was fantastic just to get involved, and it was a wonderful setup, and I'm very privileged that I had 5.5 years with the Proteas.
You mentioned a couple of the players there. I mean, these guys are legends, unbelievable talents. AB de Villiers, first and foremost. How was he to work with? And you said obviously very welcoming. So it sounds like you probably were just loving it, a kid in the candy shop. You've always loved your cricket. Now you're around these great players. But what was it like working with them on a day-to-day basis? How much do you actually say to these guys? I mean, what's the communication like when you're doing a batting session with AB?
Say as little as possible. So you get to learn their routines, what they do, what they like doing. On that tour, I remember throwing at Hashim, and he wanted to finish hitting straight drives, and so I had to come in and throw, and I couldn't throw straight, and I felt so much pressure that you just wanted to nail a few past the bowler, and I kept bowling too far outside off stump, and he was saying just a bit straighter, and then it would again sort of be on off stump, and he hit it through extra cover, and just one straighter, and it's as you don't really know that as a coach. You got to deliver a quality. Quality product. So your throwing's got to be very good. Your hitting's got to be very good. I remember, AB de Villiers was keeping on that tour, or the following tour. We were in, I think it was against Pakistan in Dubai, and or Abu Dhabi, one of the two. And he was practicing his keeping, and I had to hit with a tennis ball with those sort of hard red slaz ball things, and I had to hit with a tennis racket onto a catch it board, and he would sort of catch, and I couldn't hit the damn board, and I was like so embarrassed, and I was thinking, jeepers, he must think I'm a bloody clown, and all you want to do is do the thing properly. And I play a little bit of tennis, and I've got quite a good forehand, but I've had a terrible backhand.
Okay.
So I was hitting forehands, and I couldn't hit the damn board, and then I had nowhere to go, and I tried to hit with a backhand, and suddenly I could do it, and it was such a, oh my word, how did this happen? I can't hit a backhand. And so I still hit those ones backhand, and found a way, and I promise you, he made it so pleasant for me, because he kept saying, no, don't worry, you'll get it right in a minute. And and there you're thinking, you're just trying to crawl under the turf. Here's the best player in the world, and you just want to deliver a decent product, and you can't do it. And eventually I got it right, but he was so accommodating, and they all were. It is daunting, and for those coaches out there, you've got to make sure that you also practice, and make sure that you can deliver a quality product. And hitting catches, you got to make sure that you can do it. In your nicks, you got to make sure you can do it if you want to do coach at a certain level. So there's also you've got to provide a quality product in the hitting and the catching, and catching with a mitt, and also throwing with a stick. Nowadays, in my day, we had to throw with an arm. Mm-hmm. And that is very much part of. So what do? Firstly, you provide a good product yourself, mm-hmm. and then you look at their routines and learn their routines, and then look at small things that you can assist with, and you go from there. Small beginnings. So say very little at the start, and just as you develop a relationship, then you can say more.
Mm-hmm. Something lives on in my memory. You're talking about your coaching skills there and delivering with the feeding and everything else. I've never seen anything like this, but you used to throw catches, or should I say wing catches, and to this day, I don't think any coach has ever hit the ball that hard at me for a catch. But I remember being in Malahide, and you'd actually done a little stint that we kind of skipped through. You actually worked with the Scottish cricket team for a while as well, which was an unbelievable time. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. What a great coach. But Malahide in particular, I'll never forget, because I was crapping myself. I thought my hands were going to fall off, and you take a run up and you would just wing these catches. Where did that skill come from?
My dad always had a drill, which was not really, you wouldn't learn, you wouldn't be taught it as a coach, where you'd put sort of most of the side in a semicircle in front of him, and he would sling catches. So you wouldn't know if you throwing to the first person or the last person. Yep. And it would sort of come out anywhere in between. And he always had a thing that you had to catch 10 in a row as a team before you could go home. Yes, and it was a fun exercise. Well. And so I developed from that, where my dad used to sling these balls, and I learned to a little bit how to sling a ball.
How did you show? I mean, you must have been all right because you're a leg spinner, but I mean, it must have been you really that I remember actually. You've refreshed my memory. We actually stood in like a slip cord, and I remember now it would come out at different angles, and we went at it. I think it took us a good half an hour, 45 minutes to take 10 in a row. Otherwise, we couldn't go to lunch. And the speed that you were getting off those, was it, did that come out with the South African team? Did they like a bit of the Adrian Birrell wings?
It probably did at some stage. Yeah, it's there. It's one of the tools.
No, it's very impressive. Can you still do it? Can you still do it? Can you still wing them?
Kazim, I've just turned 60. Yeah, I can still throw it. My right arm is fine. My left arm's not so good.
Not so good now. Not so good.
No, my left arm is not great.
So 5 years, amazing. Must have been 5 years. What did you take most out of working with a team at that level with those type of players? What was it? What were the key the differences as you've come through as a coach that you maybe took on into further years when you've moved into other roles?
I think it's just the experiences. Sorry, I'm coming inside because my battery's going flat, Chasm.
No problem. No problem.
Sorry.
No, you're
Why don't you
fine.
give me a charger? Thanks. Chasm, I think it's just the experiences. You know, every day you are involved in in matches, and it's just learning from every situation and every match, and your chats to players, and it's just learning from that, and putting it into your sort of playbook, really. And sorry, there we
No,
go.
you're
I'm not
fine.
good at
You're fine.
multitasking.
This is fine.
And then using that those experiences to as a menu, something that you can pull up from time to time. Those sling catches is part of a menu, and every now and again it comes up. Yeah.
You take your menu back over to the UK, and you come over to lovely Hampshire. Totally another different setup again. How was your introduction to county cricket?
Difficult. I never ever thought county. I hadn't experienced county cricket, and there's no breaks, and you go from one format to the next, sort of in the next day. And I'm used to preparing a team for at least a week before a particular format.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go from playing 4-day cricket to a T20 game in the next day, and it's daunting. And although the county players are quite used to it, coaches, particularly South African and possibly Australian, New Zealand coaches, are not that familiar with the change-ups, and also leading into matches without much preparation was very difficult, and I still find it difficult, and it's one of the challenges that I've had to try and deal with and come up with a plan to do it successfully.
Do you like T20 cricket? It's obviously not. It's obviously more of a new thing, as from your cricketing career and your early coaching career. There wasn't much of it around. How have you warmed to it? What do you like the format?
I do. I like 50-over cricket. I think 50-over cricket's a good format.
Mm-hmm.
I hope the ICC continue with 50-over cricket. T20s is a challenge. The shorter the format, the more structured you have to be. You wouldn't think that, but it is. And I quite enjoy that, because you've got to think a lot and be very structured in how you prepare for the first 6 overs, and how you prepare for the back end, and how you bowl to protect, to certain players. And so it's very structured, and you have to prepare very well. And so, from a few years back, when you thought, oh, well, it's just sort of hit and giggle, it's far from that. It's actually, it's quite an intense match, because there's a lot of preparation that goes into just a very short period of time. And there's no time to, 3 balls, 3 dots changes the complex, the complexity of a match. 3 dots or 3 4s in a row, or 2 4s and a 6, and it's so fluid that you've got to be right on the money, and so it's a challenge, and it's something I enjoy. But the game, unless you as a player, unless you're able to evolve your own game, the game leaves you behind very quickly. So there's a challenge for those older players who are set in their ways. They've got to find new ways of doing things, because with all the analysis that goes on, you get found out very quickly, and it's an evolving game. Things. It's not.
Especially the fielding. I mean, you used to, in 1-day cricket, I think a lot of guys still would be able to hide a little bit. In T20, I don't think there's any hiding places. Even short 45, you've got to be on it. It's an important position.
Yeah. No, fielding's big. it's a guy with great skill can in 50 over cricket can bat at a runner ball and get a runner ball 100, and it's a fantastic innings. To bat at 150 strike rate takes a different, it's a different way of playing. And so a lot of players, it's quite easy to get a runner ball in T20 cricket, but to get your strike rate up to 140, 150, where the best players are, that's quite a challenge. It's become very much a 360 game, not just a power game. And the best players are those that are able to adapt and evolve their game so that they've got the sweeps and they've got the ramps and they've got options that can access shorter boundaries, hitting with the wind and all those little factors that come into T20 cricket.
Very interesting. Coming towards the back end now, few questions to just finish with. First question is, what's the future holding for your good self? Are you coming back over to England, or obviously we don't, things are strange at the moment, but what's happening with yourself?
I've got one more year of a contract with Hampshire, and then we'll see. I really enjoy Hampshire, and they're great to me, and it's a wonderful county. But obviously we need to win, like everyone, and so there is pressure to win, and we all feel that pressure. And so who knows? If we have a good season, maybe the powers that be will say have another one, or not. So I try not to look too far ahead. But I'm actually just preparing for this season coming up and giving it a lot of thought. Speaking to my boss Giles White a lot most days now, and the preparation has begun already in my head, and obviously the players are fully at it with the other coaches that are doing a fantastic job with them during this time in Hampshire.
Something, it's all through your career, you can see it quite clearly. You have longevity at wherever you go. I mean, you had five years at Ireland, you had 5 years with the SA job. You've now been with Hampshire, now going into your third year. It's obviously a good sign that you're a good man, you're a good bloke, people like you, and you do a good job as a coach. Is there any key bits of advice you could give to a coach coming into a role that's going to maybe want to be 2, 3, 4 years, of what's the most important things to try and do?
Well, I think communicate, make sure you communicate to players, and also your, the hierarchy, whoever's in charge of you. Make sure that communication is very good. I think that's the main thing, but also to think a little bit ahead and have ambition for whichever team you're with, that you can, leave it in a better state than you took it over as, and you've got to think about where the team's going, and what players are there for the succession planning of that team. So you've got to think ahead and not just think of now. Everyone wants to win now, but you've also got to win next year and the year after. And so, the sort of the building blocks need to be in place for the future as well. So, you've got to think here and now, but you've also got to have an eye on the future. And then I think you've got to have good people around you, and make sure that you've got good coaches that you're with, or good management, and then develop a team that has good leadership, amongst senior players, and there's good succession planning for the players, and getting good experience and learning on the job as they come into that team, that people can grow. And if there's growth, then there is longevity, I think.
Fantastic advice. I think forward planning is such an important thing. Like you say, don't just look at the next couple of games. A guy like yourself's probably already thinking about halfway through next season, and a player that you're maybe going to be looking at that's maybe not right just yet, but you'll maybe want him in 6 months' time. Things like that it's so interesting to listen to. Sarah, I just want to say to you, been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. One of the most renowned coaches and mentors, like I said at the start, in world cricket. And I just want to say to you that I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, Kazim. All the best and have a good year.
Same to you. I'll be looking out for you with Hampshire and looking for another year contract to be extended on.
Okay, thank you, Kazim. Cheers. All the best.